And a couple of years ago, I changed the name of the company to Project Pivot because I find that that's the piece that we need to understand is that projects do change and they move and they pivot. And the way we start may not be the way we finish. And the key is that middle piece is how do we go with the flow? And that involves sometimes a lot of pivoting and things happen in the world. For example, the pandemic, and it was right around the pandemic time, just before that, that I
Yeah.
actually changed the company name.
All right. I'm so excited to have Barbara Kephart, who has been a longtime business bestie, project manager, business owner, and an indoor recess faculty. And if you haven't heard of indoor recess, well, just wait in later podcast episodes. So this is the Real Life PM podcast. Excited to bring on Barbara Kephart. You're going to learn more about her in a few moments, but I'm going to kind of give it away to Barbara, and then we'll just kind of free flow with some questions I have and see where things go. So, Barbara, what is your 30-second elevator explanation as to what you do?
Oh, that's always a tough one. I find it changes sometimes, you know, I'll stick with one for a while but the one that I have right now that I find really resonates with people is we turn project chaos into clarity and we boost companies' growth and profits and we streamline efficiency. And most importantly, we bring higher project success rates because that's the missing piece. And we do this in a bit of a unique way that most people don't. And most people don't do it because it's not necessarily the easiest way to get the projects done, but it's the most effective. So we have a group of our chief project officers. We use those folks to identify who can figure out who can do what projects effectively within their company. And if there's no one available, we bring in fractional project professionals on a project by project basis. So we kind of have this unique thing where we do a combination of the strategic project portfolio, we do training that goes along with it, as well as we have our dedicated project managers, and the recipe of all that together just pulls it all together nicely.
I love it. And I loved your tagline of like, those projects that are in chaos, because you and I both know we've seen those projects, and it's like having to be the Olivia Pope, right, of project managers trying to fix things. And I think that goes nicely to the title, your business name, I should say. Tell everybody your business name, given that you set it up really well. You were like, it changes because you are.
I am an evolving, changing person, and all of us as project managers need to understand that we are evolving, changing people, as well as the companies that we're working with, and wherever we might be in the governments that we're involved with, they all change. And so I actually, when I first started my business 10 years ago, I had a different name. And that name doesn't matter because actually it only resonated to me. It didn't resonate to anybody else. And a couple of years ago, I changed the name of the company to Project Pivot because I find that that's the piece that we need to understand is that projects do change and they move and they pivot. And the way we start may not be the way we finish. And the key is that middle piece is how do we go with the flow? And that involves sometimes a lot of pivoting and things happen in the world. For example, the pandemic, and it was right around the pandemic time, just before that, that I
Yeah.
actually changed the company name. So I did not know that that year would pivot would be the word of the year. And but that's what my that's what my company is. And I myself, I didn't start as a traditional project manager. I did not know when I left high school that I would become a project manager running my company. And so there's so many things that we have to embrace with the pivot word. And those of us who manage projects have to understand that pivoting goes along with the flow.
Absolutely love that. I loved how you just had me kind of thinking through over the last 5 years, 20 years since COVID. It's hard to keep up exactly just how much pivoting. And even now, at the time of this recording, changes across, the United States, and then having the ripple effect impact on our friends and neighbors, and how they too are having to pivot. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. But I do have a couple of like more getting to know you questions, and then I want to circle back to this whole pivoting concept, because I think there are some listeners that are going to really want to hear about your perspective of pivoting from a career change standpoint. But what's a fun fact about yourself that's not on your resume?
A fun fact about me. I would say that I really like to dance. I have always liked dancing, but I would never call myself a dancer, nor am I necessarily good at it. But I find when you work in front of a computer and you just feel like you need to move and you need to get up and move. So I've been embracing over the past quite a few years all different types of dance, reggae, Latin, conscious dance, world music. I even tried belly dance for a few years just to give that a shot.
Nice.
My back didn't necessarily like it, but it was really fun to get those hips moving like Shakira. And I also found that the one type of dance that I like doing, not necessarily the best, but I do enjoy doing, is partner dance. And the reason why is we as project managers, on a day-to-day basis, we have to lead people, especially as we become more advanced in our field. And when you're partner dancing and someone else is in charge of where you're going next, it turns my brain off. And I really like that because I have no idea where I'm going to be led across the dance floor. And that's a break for what we actually have to do in our day-to-day job as
That
project
is
managers,
so cool.
is that we have to lead everybody. And so I didn't realize it. It took me a while because partner dancing comes with a whole sense, it's a whole group of social, anxieties. But once I started letting go of that part and how I look and everything, and then I was like, oh, I have no idea where I'm going to go next. Oh, look at that. I'm on the other side of the room. Oh, look at that. I just did a spin. And it it really kind of opened up that, wow, this is a break from my day to day. And that's one of the reasons why I like partner dancing. So none of that is on my resume. You will see all kinds of volunteer experience. I do all kinds of things on the side of my volunteer time, but dancing is not listed on there.
And that is so interesting because as I get to know more project managers, when I'm finding some of the hobbies or things that we like to do, is it's anything that doesn't put me in charge. I
You are
do not
so right.
use my brain like that. Like even like planning trips, I completely give it to my husband. I'm like, just surprise. He's like, do you want to know where we're going to dinner? Nope, just surprise me. You want to know what
Yeah.
activities? I'll just show up. Just tell me what to wear. And I'm always like amazed. I'm never disappointed because I'm not doing expectations management. I'm not trying to, I'm just going to show
Right,
up and enjoy the
right,
ride. So I
right.
think that's great. Well, tell me this, Barbara, do you remember how we met?
I do. I do. I had recorded a podcast with the digital project manager, and it was my very first podcast ever I had recorded. And I was really nervous about listening to it after. So I put my earbuds on and I went out to my garden and I gardened while I was listening to it. And after I finished listening to it, I was like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Your podcast came on. It was like the one before the one after. We were very close with how they scheduled, and I had no idea who you were. And I knew immediately as soon as I heard you talk, we'd get along. I just knew it, which has been the case. And I also, when I looked at your website and I saw that you had called yourself the Misfit PM, totally resonated with me. It completely fit with my pivoting ways and how that we need to change things, and also not having a traditional way of getting into this field. And so the misfit word really resonated, and so I reached out to you, and we had an initial quick meeting, and then we had another meeting after that, and then you invited me to talk on a panel for indoor recess, and I wrote down the title. It was called unconventional paths to PM experience, project management experience, beyond the title. And you had me with a couple other panelists talking about how we got to where we are, because it it you never know who's going to land to be a project manager. And those are the type of folks that I work with. Is I've worked with people that they didn't realize that they've been a project manager their whole life. And in my case, I actually can officially say I have been a project manager my whole life. I grew up in a Italian Irish loud family, and I needed to learn how to manage them. And so everybody in the family would always turn to me to do things, the events or the birthday parties or something, because I was the one kind of bringing everybody down, saying, let's do it this way, let's try it that way. And I also grew up in a family run business. And I was helping
Okay.
my parents out at a very young age in a healthcare medical imaging business, also project managing. And so then my actual initial career for 20 years was a medical provider. I was a healthcare provider in medical technology, doing diagnostic exams in nuclear medicine and ultrasound. Once again, the absolute opposite of what I do now. But everything I learned during that time led me towards actually being able to help people now who are project managers or companies that need project management. There's things that you learn throughout your entire past lives around communication, how to get things out the door cleanly, how to pivot when needed, that you can carry into your career. So that's how we met, and I thought it was a great. The panel we did was great, and yeah, so that's how you and I came to know each other. And it just seems like forever at this point, even though it's really only
I
been a few
know.
years.
I know with COVID, it seems like time stood still. And then now that we're kind of going back to normal, I guess, with people going into the office, um, it seems like it was a lifetime ago, but there was so much new connections, right? It was definitely a sad time from a public health perspective. But oh my gosh, I have met so many people that I don't think I would have ever met before if it hadn't been that we were all kind of thrown into working remotely and finding ways to connect in a virtual setting. So I think I've probably have more friends, more connections than I ever have and ever thought I would during that time. But I think it happened so fast and furious. Sometimes it feels like a blur, right? Like, how did we meet? When did we meet? Why did we meet? Oh, we did meet in person. So, and
I
sometimes when
agree.
you see people in person, right, it is like, you get the biggest hug because
Yeah.
I finally meet you. Like you're real, you're in 3D. So
And I know we've been trying to do that, and I truly believe it will happen at some point.
it will happen. Absolutely. Because just for our listeners, I'm based in the Washington, D.C. area. And Barbara, you're like, I don't want to say bi-coastal. What is the term?
So I am actually I'm a dual citizen of both Canada and the US. I up until a few years ago, I lived exactly half my life in Canada and half my life in the US. Once again, back to the pivoting theme, when I was 21 years old, I moved to California because why not? What else do 21-year-olds want to do but move to California? And I went there as part of what used to be called the free trade agreement. So the NAFTA free trade agreement between Canada and the US, because my job was in demand. And I thought I was going to take a year-long contract in the US, and a year turned into 25 years. And so I stayed there. Both of my kids were born there. And in 2016, I moved back. I had started my company at that point, and I brought my company with me because my youngest wanted to go to high school in Canada, and that's how I landed back here. And I also had some family things that I needed to be back for with my mother, and so I do now live outside of the Toronto area. But I do
Okay.
still continue to have all of my connections in the U.S., and I do hop back and forth across the border, and yeah, so that's how that all came to be.
That's
And I do,
great. And
I also do consider myself American, to finish on that thought too, is, because my formative years were in the US, and America was very, very good to me career wise. And Canada's also been very good to me career wise. So I do feel like I kind of, let's say, straddle the border, or the way I like to think of it is when I'm in the US, I feel like I have both feet on the ground. And when I'm in Canada, I feel like I have both feet on the ground. I don't quite feel as straddly.
well, that's great. That's great. And it, just yet another example of your ability to pivot, whether it is work, because some of us, I'm US based, and, there are definitely limitations right now with doing work in Canada. Sometimes there might be some opportunities in the Caribbean. I'm definitely going to make sure we tag team if ever I see a project in the Virgin Islands. We're
Oh,
so
yeah,
there. So.
definitely. Right there with you, Crystal.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this special series with our guests. If you enjoyed these episodes, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps us bring even more great content to you. I'm Crystal Richards, and this is Real Life PMP Podcast. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and celebrate all of your wins.